Hello! Today I'm going to teach you how to play Algomancy, a unique card game with some mechanics you probably haven't seen before. Algomancy takes place in the fragmented realms of Enduin, a digital universe crafted by the AI Echelon. In Algomancy, players take the role of Algomancers, beings capable of manipulating the source code of reality itself. The goal of Algomancy is to eliminate all of your opponents. Players start at 30 life, and they fight to be the last one standing. Let's dive into what makes this game special. Algomancy has 4 unique features that set it apart from other card games. First, it uses a global turn structure. There are no individual turns. All players act during the same phases of a global turn. This means while I'm planning my strategy, my opponent is planning theirs simultaneously. This creates a dynamic game with minimal downtime and no first player advantage. Second is the region system. Each player exists in their own region. Think of it as a personal territory where your cards exist. The key thing to understand is that regions are completely isolated from one another. Think of it like islands separated by water. Cards and effects in one region don't see or interact with cards in any other regions. This is a hard rule. There will never, ever be interaction of any kind across regions. This isolation is only broken when you attack, temporarily entering your opponent's region. I cannot stress enough how important this is for the way the game works. If it helps, you can mentally add "in this region" onto every card effect. If you walk away from this video having learned one thing, remember this: there will never ever be interaction across regions in any aspect of Algomancy. Third, Algomancy features a live drafting mechanic. During each turn, you'll combine the cards in your hand with a pack of cards. Then select which ones to keep for your strategy. You'll pass the remaining cards to your opponent, who will draft from them next turn. Finally, Algomancy has a unique modification system that lets you combine cards together. Cards with the Augment symbol can add their abilities to existing cards. Cards with the Graft symbol let you combine multiple effects into one trigger. I'll go into more detail about these mechanics later in the video. Before we get into gameplay, let's understand how to read an Algomancy card. At the top of the card, you'll find the name, mana cost, and affinity requirement. The mana cost is how many resources you need to expend in order to play it. The affinity dots show which types of resources you need to have in play. For units, you'll see power and defense values. Power is how much damage they deal in combat, and defense is how much damage they can take before dying. When a unit dies, it will be placed into the bin. The text box contains the card's abilities. Pay attention to keywords and symbols in here. Algomancy has several card types. Units are permanents that stay in play until removed. Spells provide one-time effects and go into the bin after resolving. Resources provide mana and elemental affinity. You'll also encounter spell units and tokens during gameplay. We'll talk about those later. Most cards can be played in deployment, but of course there are exceptions. If you look at the top right of the cards, you may see special symbols that indicate timing. The haste symbol means the card can be played before battle in addition to its normal timings. The virus symbol means it can be applied as a modification from your hand during battle, in addition to its normal timings. In contrast, the battle symbol means it can only be played during battle and cannot be played during deployment. The gold text in the type line denotes combat attributes. This includes things like flying and swift, which affect how units perform during battle. Some cards have non-combat attributes, which appear in purple text like burst and unstable. These modify how cards function outside of combat. Now that we've got the basics covered, let's walk through how you set up and start a game. In this video, we're going to focus on the live draft format, which is recommended for beginners and showcases the essential Algomancy experience. The game also comes with some suggestions on how to simplify these rules even further, which is noted on the 2-player insert sheet that comes in each box. To start, players roll for initiative. The winner begins the game with the initiative token and will make decisions first when required. The initiative will trade between players each turn. Next, select elements for the shared deck. For a 2-player game, we'll pick 3 elements. For this game, we'll use fire, wood, and earth. You'll also include the hybrid cards for the selected combinations. In this case, wood, earth, and fire, wood. Then, take all of the selected cards and shuffle them together. This will form the deck. When you're done shuffling, deal 16 cards from this deck to each player. Each player also gets 2 Prismite resources that they start with in play face down. The pack goes in the top right in the pack deck, the bin goes below the pack, and resources are placed in the resource zone. The shared deck, resources, and other tokens can be placed off to the side, accessible to all players. Now that we're set up, let's walk through a turn of the game. Algomancy has 4 main phases: planning, battle, regroup, and deployment. Let's walk through them all in turn order. The planning phase begins with each player drawing 2 cards, except on the first turn since those cards were already dealt during setup. Next comes the drafting step. Players combine their hands with their packs of cards. Then select which cards to keep, leaving exactly 10 cards in the pack. When players have finished drafting, they will pass the pack of 10 cards to the other player. Then comes the resource step. During this step, players can create resources by recycling cards from their hand, placing them on the bottom of the deck. The initiative player will complete the resource step first, then the non-initiative player will go. Resources start dormant, or face down, and you can activate up to 2 resources each turn. On the first turn, players typically activate their dormant prismites, so trading for resources isn't necessary until later turns. Active prismites can be exchanged for any elemental resource, giving you your choice of starting resources. If you activate a resource and now have at least 3 resources of the same element, you get a shard for free, which provides mana but no affinity. This rewards players for specializing in particular elements. Finally, there's the very short haste step, where players can play cards with the haste symbol. First, the initiative player can play haste cards, then the non-initiative player will go, if they have any. And that's it for the planning phase. Next is the battle phase, which is where you'll spend most of your time playing Algomancy. The battle phase is where players are able to attack into enemy regions and defend against opposing invasions. It is the only phase in Algomancy where players are able to interact with each other. To begin battle, first the initiative player declares their attacks. Sending their units into their opponent's region. Attacking units are placed in a formation with front and back rows. Formations can be as wide as needed, but a maximum of 2 rows deep. Combat attributes in gold text are shared by units within the same column. This creates interesting strategic combinations, like placing a unit with flying in front of another unit, giving the entire column flying, making it hard to block. After attacks are declared and formations are set, there's a priority window where players can interact with each other by playing spells or activating abilities. This is also when the "when I attack" triggers will happen. Next, the non-initiative player will declare blockers and have the opportunity to declare a counterattack. Because these units have left battle, we're treating them as if they don't exist, until we resolve their battle later on. If the initiative player did not attack with any units, the non-initiative player can still make an attack at this stage. After blocks are declared, but before damage happens, there is another opportunity for players to interact with each other. Then we move to the combat damage step. During combat, columns of units deal damage to each other equal to their combined power. If a column is blocked, attacking and defending columns deal damage to each other. Columns of units receive damage first to the front unit, and then to the back unit if there's excess damage beyond the defense of the front unit. All of this damage takes place simultaneously for all units, unless they have swift or sluggish. Unblocked attacking units deal damage directly to the defending player, reducing their life points by the amount of damage dealt. There is another after-combat priority window where players can play spells to interact, one last time before the end of battle. If there was a counterattack, we now move to this region and resolving battle there. This battle structure is identical, except the initiative player no longer gets the opportunity to attack because they've already had the chance earlier in the turn. First, there is another priority window for interaction where players can play spells and interact. Then we move to blocks. After the block step, there is another priority window for interaction. Then combat damage will happen at the same time. Any unblocked attackers will deal damage to the defending player. After combat is completely resolved in this region, there's one more priority window for interaction. Then we move to regroup, so all units will return back to their controller's regions. After regroup comes the deployment phase. The deployment phase is where players play most of their cards. Each player is in their own region during this phase, so there's no interaction between players. First, the initiative player will take their deployment. Then the non-initiative player will go. After deployment finishes, any end of turns trigger, and the turn is complete. The initiative token passes to the new player, and a new turn begins. Now that you understand the basic flow of the game, let's look at some of Algomancy's more complex mechanics. Tokens are temporary cards that are created during the game, and they come in two varieties. Unit tokens are used to represent units that were created by effects such as this one. Unit tokens behave identically to other units, except they have a cost of 0, and when they leave the play zone, return them to the token pile instead of putting them anywhere else. If a unit is created during battle, it will spawn in the region it was created, but not in formation. Spell tokens can be used directly from play and go onto the stack like any other spell. They also have the burst attribute, which requires all spell tokens of the same name to be played simultaneously. They will resolve individually as separate effects and can choose different targets, but they will be all played at the same time. Similar to unit tokens, spell tokens will spawn in the region that they are created in. They can be brought into other regions by sending them with an attacking formation. They cannot be sent into other regions on their own. Spell tokens that leave the play zone also get erased and returned to the token pile. During the regroup step, any spell tokens that are still in play get erased, so be sure to use them while you can. Also, it's worth mentioning that spell tokens are erased during regroup and not during the end of turn. So any spell tokens created during deployment can be brought into battle on the following turn. Next, we'll talk about modifications. Algomancy has two special ways that cards can be combined, Graft and Augment. We refer to both of these mechanics as mods. These special mechanics simply add more options in how the cards can be used. Their abilities are still active when the cards are played normally. The Augment mechanic lets you add complete abilities onto cards already in play. To apply an Augment, you must meet its affinity cost and pay its mana cost. You can apply Augments both from your hand or from the bin. Multiple Augments can stack on a single card, creating powerful combinations. Virus cards are special because they can be applied as augments from your hand directly during battle, in addition to being able to be played or augmented as normal during the deployment. You can even augment your opponent's units, turning their drawback into a weapon against them. The second modification, Graft, lets you combine multiple effects onto a single trigger. There are two types of grafts, bounded graft and unbounded graft. The bounded graft triggers once per turn, and the unbounded graft can trigger an unlimited number of times. In contrast to Augment, which can be applied to any unit, you can only graft cards onto units that have the graft symbol. So this would be a legal graft, but this would not. When something is grafted onto another card, it adds its additional effects onto the cause of the topmost card. The resulting ability is treated as a single effect, resolving from top to bottom. Unlike Augment, where the entire ability is added to other cards, Graft only supplies the effect that comes after the graft symbol. Everything before the graft symbol is ignored. Similar to Augment, any number of grafts can stack onto a single card. So go wild. Keep in mind, graft cards can also just be played as regular cards. The graft ability is just an additional way that they can be used. Modified cards may seem overpowered, but they have one significant drawback. They become unstable. If a modded card dies or is erased, it and all of its modifications are erased from the game forever. If a modified card is recalled, all of its mods will be placed directly into the bin. Now that you understand the basics of Algomancy, let's dig a little bit deeper into player interaction. Algomancy uses the stack for resolving effects during battle. The stack resolves last in, first out, meaning the most recently played effect resolves first. We visualize this by putting new cards on top of the stack. When a card is played or an ability triggers, it goes on top of the stack as an effect. Then, starting with the initiative player, all players get an opportunity to respond, adding new effects onto the stack if they want. Once all players decide they do not want to add any more to the stack, the top effect will resolve, and the process is repeated again. This continues until all players pass on an empty stack. When we say there is a priority window for interaction, this means we're opening up the stack for players to interact in this back and forth manner. There are 3 opportunities for players to interact within each battle. After attacks have been declared, but before blockers. After blockers have been declared, but before damage. And after combat damage. Now that we've got all these concepts laid out, let's walk step by step through an example turn. First, each of us refreshes our resources, draws 2 cards, and drafts our hands. When we are finished drafting, we will pass their packs to the other player. As the initiative player, I will recycle 1 card from my hand to get an Earth resource. This Earth resource spawns dormant. I will then activate it because I have 3 Earth resources that will give me a shard. That shard spawns dormant and I will also activate it. My opponent declines to get resources. During the haste step, I will play Hubalin. My opponent has no haste plays. Then I will attack with Bellowing Boulder, leaving Hubalin back in my own region. When Bellowing Boulder attacks, it creates a trigger to deal 1 damage to each unit. Notably, because Bellowing Boulder is in a separate region from Hubalin, this damage will not impact the Hubalin. My opponent responds to the Bellowing Boulder trigger by playing a Fireball 4, targeting the Bellowing Boulder. I respond to the Fireball 4 by playing an Aetherglux Golem as a virus, augmenting it onto my Bellowing Boulder. We both pass priority, Aetherflux Golem resolves, and it will be attached to the boulder as an augment. We pass again, and the Fireball resolves, dealing 4 damage to the Bellowing Boulder. Finally, Bellowing Boulder's trigger resolves, dealing 1 damage to each unit in this region and killing my opponent's tokens. Then we move to the block step. My opponent counterattacks me with Bub. First, we're going to finish this combat in its entirety, so my opponent will take 5 damage from the Bellowing Boulder. Once we've finished that combat, we'll move over to this region, where there's another priority window for interaction. We both pass, and we move to blocks where I block Bub with my Hubalin. My opponent then plays Flame of History targeting Hubalin. I have no response, Hubalin will die, and my opponent will draw 1 card off the Flame of History. Then we move to damage. Because Bub has already been blocked by the Hubalin, even though it's dead, I will take no combat damage in this region. After that, we move to Regroup, and all the units return back to their own regions. During deployment, I will augment Hubalin onto the Bellowing Boulder, and my opponent will play a Bumblecrab. And that's a complete turn cycle. Next turn, my opponent would have the initiative, but we would repeat all those phases in order again. While we focused on 1v1 play in this video, Algomancy can also be played in free-for-all with multiple players. The basic mechanics remain the same, except the battle structure is a little different. In free-for-all, players declare attacks simultaneously using intent cards. Players place these cards face down in front of their units to indicate the intended actions. Once everyone has placed their intent cards, they're revealed at once and the attacks happen simultaneously. This attack system greatly simplifies the turn structure in free-for-all games. Rather than the attack-counterattack flow you see in 1v1 games, free-for-all games simply have one global attack with no opportunity for counterattacks. Then, battles are resolved sequentially in each region, clockwise from the initiative player. If there are two battles taking place that share no players, these battles can be resolved simultaneously. If more than one player attacks into the same region, 3 players will occupy one region, 2 attacking and 1 defending. In this situation, the defending players can defy their units to block the oncoming attackers, and all 3 players in this region can interact with each other. Algomancy also supports other formats like constructed, cube draft, and team games, but we'll cover those in a different video, which you can find in the description below. That covers the basics of Algomancy. This game features aspects of drafting, deck building, and strategic decision making. There's so much more to explore here, so be sure to check out our videos in the description below. For more information, visit algomancy.io, which features rules, how to play videos, and comprehensive card information. You can also join the Discord if you want to connect with other members, ask questions, or find people to play with. Thanks for watching and enjoy playing Algomancy.